Welcome to episode 15 of the Imperial Tides podcast. Today I'm here with my dad and my uncle, and we're going to talk about Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. How you guys doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Good.
It's good. All right, so to start, we'll have Uncle go first because he's the guest. Uncle, what would you say you rate this movie out of 10 and why?
Hi, I'm the uncle. First of all, I want to ask, what's the out of 10? Do you guys consider 5 to be like normal, like 5 is an okay movie, or is 5 bad? Because if you're doing grades, like in a school, like a 70% is a C, which is a 7, but a 50% would be a D.
We'll do it by school grading. So 10 would be 100%, 50 would be an F.
So like an average movie is like 7, right?
An average movie is a C. Yeah, it passes.
Gotcha. I would say if we're gonna do grades, I would say I give it like a C plus.
A C plus.
Okay.
So somewhere around like a 7.5 then.
Yeah, like a 7.5. I mean, if we did the thing where 1 through 10 and 5 is kind of like average, like it's an average okay movie, I would give it like a 6. But if we're doing grades, yeah, C plus.
Okay. And why do you say that? What are some of the reasons?
It's not one of the strongest of the Star Trek Kirk era movies, but it's not the worst either. So
right. So what keeps it from being as strong as it maybe could be?
I mean, it's really weird. It's a mix of certain production values that are good in certain areas and kind of either behind the times or slightly subpar in others. So there's that, you know what I mean? I think it came out in 84. Yeah. I think some parts of it seem dated already. Example is, there's like little bits here and there that make it seem a little dated. When McCoy goes to this Federation bar, it looks like something like a sci-fi someone would make in the 70s or 60s, but it's like the 80s by now, so
right, yeah. A little outdated by then.
It's a little outdated, and that's just like one example of many. But
also the fight between Kirk and Christopher Lloyd Klingon.
That's a very outdated choreography for sure. That's like a bunch of old men just throwing themselves at each other. Sure.
Well, and so what about you, Dad? What would you give this out of 10 if you had to grade it, and why?
Well, you were doing a little bit of different. Uncle brings up a really good point with the scales. Because I was just going, 10, and I wasn't even thinking about.
Well, letter grade,
Yeah, letter grade.
100%, 90%.
I give it an 8. I give it an 8.
You give it an A?
No, an 8.
An 8. So an 80.
Yeah, I give it an 80. Now,
so it's a B movie for you.
It's a B movie for me, but you didn't ask the question you did when we did the motion picture, which was,
Well, so now we can go back.
Objectively personal. Okay, so objectively, I give it. You know what? I'm gonna give it an 8 too. Still, I'm gonna give it an 8, only because culturally it brings us a lot of things to the table that we didn't have before. Your uncle and I, when we were growing up, all we had was the Constitution class Enterprise.
Right.
Okay, and we're going back to what the cultural significance of this movie. We had just the Constitution class Enterprise. The motion picture gave us again just the Constitution class Enterprise. We had a Federation that consisted of just one homogeneous starship. We had never seen another starship until Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. So now we've expanded.
You know what?
What's that?
Your dad brings up a good point. I was going to get to one of the best shining moments of why Star Trek 3 is good. Is because it introduces to on the nerdy. If you're a fan of spaceships, 3 is great because it introduces way more ships.
Absolutely.
And that is what's great about it. I guess when my nephew was asking me what the grade scale is, I was thinking more just like story only, not like the stuff that gets me as like a sci-fi geek, like the cool new ships.
Right,
you know what I mean? Right. In that perspective, yeah, I think you're right. It might be bumped up to like a B, because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, because we got the Reliant class in 2, and then 3 they doubled down on it. They gave us the Oberth class for the They gave us the Oberth class for the research vessel. They gave us the Bird of Prey for the Klingons, and then they gave us my favorite ship next to the Constitution class, the Excelsior. I mean, the Star Trek universe just got so vast. The Starfleet and just the whole inventory of world building got huge.
And they give us the space station, and they give us also, if you want, they give us what a civilian freighter looks like.
Yep, exactly. Everybody has. It's an embarrassment of riches now in 2020, and after Enterprise, Generation, Deep Space Nine, Discovery, Voyager, everyone's just used to seeing also a universe populated with ships, and we didn't have that. We didn't have that in the 80s, and this was very significant in the fact that Star Trek 3 did all this for us fans and us nerds. So significant-wise, overall rating, I give it an 8. Production value-wise, recycled footage from the first 2 movies. Sets just exactly like we've mentioned before. The worst one for me was when they went to Vulcan.
You said you liked that, though, because it reminded you of the original series.
I did, but
because
still...
it's a cheap set.
Yeah, that was subjective. Was subjective. Objectively, production value with... the very last set in the whole movie looked like something out of a holiday Christmas special or just a weekly episodic series TV show.
Right? Yeah.
So I'll stop it with that one. We will discuss the rest of the stuff later.
Well, and so what about you, Uncle? If you had to rate it subjectively and then objectively, would your rating change at all?
Well, yeah, I wasn't, when you walk into a forum of people talking about movies, you're not quite sure, like, what the parameters are. I think...
it's different for everybody, yeah.
Right, yeah. Some people just concentrate on story mostly, and then how well it's executed.
Right.
I think with me and your dad, we grew up being very much, into models, getting models of, like, Star Wars ships, Star Trek ships, or Buck Rogers ships, whatever.
Right.
There's an extra level of entertainment value when you do give it that stuff. And, I know storytellers would kind of roll their eyes at this because it's like that they don't see that as important. But, it is part of the aspects that are decorative,
right, and
make the setting enjoyable. So in that aspect, if we're going to include that, then I might bump it up to like a B minus, or like a B, like an 8, yeah.
Okay, so overall a B, including the aesthetic aspect of the ships and the world building.
Yeah, like a B, yeah.
Okay.
You can't see me, but I'm smiling because your nephew is exactly that person. Everything has to be to rate something, to have value, to have agency. Anything in his world has to have a good story. Set design, artistic direction, everything is.
It doesn't have to have a good story. I like the prequels, even though they're not good. Because of the ideas they present.
Okay,
so
we'll talk about that.
I don't know. I think that's a bit of a hasty generalization there, Pop.
I don't know. I've grown up with you. Just I've known you.
Well, you know what? I would argue overall, plot-wise, I think the prequels have a decent story. But it's the execution where people get tripped up. So
yeah, and the novelizations kind of patch that all up. But that's another episode. So let me ask you this now. We'll start with you, Uncle. Where would you rank The Search of Spock among the first 6 original series films? So Kirk era.
Right. 1 through 6.
Yeah.
I would rate it number 4. Number 1 being my favorite, right? Yeah.
Oh, really?
So it goes like this. If you want to hear it. Yeah. Like, my least favorite is Final Frontier.
Same.
And then coming in number 6. And then number 5, Voyage Home. And then number 4, Search for Spock. And then 3, this is tough because 2 and 3 might be interchangeable. But for now, I say number 3, Motion Picture. And then number 2, Undiscovered Country, which is part 6. And then, of course, number 1, Wrath of Khan.
Okay. And then what about you, Pops?
What did I say the other time? I said, I go the other way. Star Trek the Motion Picture, number 1 for me.
Okay.
Well, I might change my rating because usually it's Wrath of Khan or Undiscovered Country would be a 2 and 3. Let's just say 2 and 3. Right now, undecided on which one's 2 and which one's 3.
Okay.
Then Search for Spock would be 4, and where are we at now? Because Final.
You said Search for Spock is 4, right? So
Or 5. Is it 5? No, Undiscovered Country.
And then Voyage Home, and then the
yes. Okay, then Voyage Home. Yeah, generally, Final Frontier dead last.
Dead last. Really? So both of you agree on that.
Dead last.
Is it cringy or something?
It only has redeeming values.
Have you not seen it yet?
Okay.
Yeah, he's this. That's why we're doing this series. Is that he's watching them all chronologically. So
yeah, so I can't give ratings yet because I haven't seen them all.
So we don't want to give away any spoilers either.
Oh, your number 5 is gonna be your favorite.
Was that one with Cybok?
Yeah. It's so bad. It's so bad.
I've heard about Cybok. That's all I know.
Okay, so yeah, that's the last one, and then I would have to say, Voyage Home. Probably be a solid 5. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so now to get a little broader, we'll start with you, Uncle. Do you think that you personally you can do this? You can interpret this any way you want. You can be subjective about it. You could be objective. But what I really want to know is, do you think Star Trek movies work better as standalones or as episodic continuations of one another? Because this one builds off of 2, but the first one's a standalone. So I don't know. Do you think that really matters?
I would still consider. Well, here's the thing. I would actually still consider all 6 of those movies standalones, even though they kind of dovetail into one another. But that's the thing. I don't think they're continuations of one another. They just the story plots kind of overlap and dovetail into another. So, Search of Spock is about it's about 2 things. It's about mainly getting Spock back, but it's also the ramifications of Genesis. But one would think that's a continuation of Genesis from Part 2, but not really, because it's the flip side. It's the stuff about Genesis we don't know about, like about how he used proto matter and it doesn't quite work as intended, and the consequences of maybe making a decision, an unethical decision like that, and to gamble. But still, at the very top of it was how much would you sacrifice for a friend, a good friend, right. Which is actually the opposite of number 2, which is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And then in this one, it's got the same, now that it occurred to me, the same themes as like Saving Private Ryan. Is it worth, all you do, like your whole group of friends, all 5, 6, 7 of you, to go rescue one guy? You know what I mean? So it's kind of in the inverse. So I would still consider it a standalone movie. And to answer your question, a little bit of overlap like that is fine, where like an element of a story goes from one to another. But it's definitely not a thing where, let's say, Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, where you have to watch one and then get the rest of the story in number 2.
Okay.
I wouldn't encourage that, but I don't mind a little overlap. And I still think, to answer your question, taking a while to get there, but I think they work better as standalones.
Okay.
With a little overlap is fine, but I think they work better standalones. You have to realize, as a fan, you're waiting about 3 or 4 years, depending on which era you're talking about,
right,
between movies. You can't expect someone to wait that long to find out more information about something that you left dangling from the previous movie.
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
There are no cliffhangers.
So every time you come in, it's like you're resetting completely. Anyway, it's a hard reset every time.
Yeah, we get a little bit of extra bonus stuff that like overlaps, and that's fine. But you're not lost if you don't know that.
So you think the narrative should supersede chronology, basically?
For the sake of the audience, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Dad? What do you think?
I would tend to agree. I think we were, when you were getting into this, I said you can watch them in any order you want, but you're very set in that you have to watch. I'm surprised actually that we were able to watch the motion pictures before we finished the original series.
Well, because I want to see them in the way they were presented to the people at the time. You know what I mean? To you guys.
And I understand that, but like I said, you can, even the original series. There's a few key episodes in the original series that you might hear me refer to it in the future as the TOS.
Everyone.
Yeah, forgive me for
TOS,
that.
TNG.
For the nerd talk. But the TOS, you can, other than maybe some 5 core episodes, you can watch them in any order.
Well, that's a little different because different medium at that point.
Right.
That's a TV show versus.
And I would say the
movies.
same thing. And I said that about the movies too. Like I said, let's just dive right into.
But then once you watch them the first time, you have a baseline. Then you can go back. They have rewatchability.
Absolute
so
rewatchability.
Like, you can watch it again. You can appreciate it on multiple viewings and stuff. But it's good to have a baseline viewing for all of them. That's what I'm going for right now.
Okay.
I'm getting the foundations because I don't know anything about the universe.
But as you're going along now, and you remember how we started this off, I said let's just dive right into one of the most watchable ones of all, which is Undiscovered Country.
But you don't have to worry about me though. I'm not like super normie that I can't watch it unless it's like got a bunch of shoots or whatever.
But
I don't mind.
I was thinking you would dive right into Undiscovered. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good way to start. Number one, then, if he's patient enough to start build up.
I've been very happy that he's been patient.
Yeah, that wasn't a concern for me though, because I was set.
Yeah, so that's my answer.
Go.
Yeah,
okay,
that's my answer. Absolutely, I don't think that they have to be viewed chronologically, and I think they can be stood alone because that was my initial recommendation to you to start off with Undiscovered Country.
Okay.
I mean, they're better. You get the bonus stuff that overlaps that we talk about does hit. It hits better.
Oh, as with any good writing,
as you do it chronologically, but it's not necessary. But yeah.
But Star Trek, this original cast motion picture franchise was cannot even be to say some of the episodes, some of the outings were good writing would be being generous.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the search for Spock because like you said earlier, Uncle, it's it is kind of an inverse of you said it was an inverse of the previous movie, but I also think it's kind of an inverse from my understanding of it of like Star Trek in general. Because you have the crew, Kirk and his crew, who are all like a family at this point. They're breaking away from Starfleet, and that might have been an issue in some episodes of TOS where the bureaucracy or the administration gets in the way of Kirk and his goals and everything. But I like that Starfleet are kind of an enemy in this movie, and also there are no extras on the ship. It's just them in their pajamas, their casual wear. It seems like a much more intimate kind of movie compared to the other two that I've seen so far. And I like that it kind of turns a few elements that are kind of been what's the term, like taken for granted as like norm, the mainstay in Star Trek. They're kind of flipped on their head in this a little bit. There's some experimentation with it, but it's not. They don't go completely in with that. But I liked the what they did do. They could have done more, but I liked what they did.
Sure.
I totally see what you mean. Yeah, I think you nailed it. It is totally that. Like you said, the normal way we see them is they have the full support of Starfleet, and that they can call upon. They have the full support of their entire crewed ship. I don't know what it is, Joe. Off the top of my head, is 150 extra? Like, I don't know how much the cruise ship is.
Well, on Search for Spock, it was not a crewed ship. It was automated by Scotty. And
but I mean normally before that.
Yeah,
normally.
You know what? I'm losing my nerd cred on this one because
you don't know, right?
Yeah, we had talked about it, and I said it's anywhere between like 357 to 400, I think, on a Constitution class. I'm looking it up right now. I'm not going to get. I'm looking it up right now. I'm not going to get caught with my pants down again.
But you're right. Like they're only by themselves, and they have to kind of like disobey orders to do it, which is kind of rough for them because they spent their whole lives in Starfleet, and there's this one thing where like we're going to have to disobey orders this time, and whatever the consequences of that, it'll be what it'll be.
And that makes the main conflict of the film more impactful because it shows that Kirk and the others are willing to put everything they've built up on the line to save their friend.
Of course, yeah, that's exactly it.
And maybe some people might, because I think one of the if there is this common criticism that Star Trek might not focus on the people enough, because it's a different kind of movie as opposed to like maybe Star Wars or something. In this one, people are, and the reason why is because everybody's working in this. Kirk has to be the captain, Spock has to be in charge of science and stuff. So they're in the military. They're constantly working. You don't really get to see a look into their personal life as much as you may want to. But here you do. You get more of that connection between and it doesn't have to necessarily be explicit. It can be subtle. It can be indirect. But here it brings that element of it, the friendship, the human aspect, more to center than maybe some of the other movies have.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know how many people actually criticize or not criticize or bring up the element that Star Trek doesn't concentrate on the characters that much. I think it depends on where you jump in, maybe. So you said you haven't seen the original series yet, right?
I've seen a couple episodes here and
He's
there.
seen 4 episodes so far.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so but there's like what 3 seasons worth of that, right? So
Yeah.
you do get a lot of like the interpersonal relationship stuff and the character building throughout those 3 seasons before you even got to see motion picture. So
Right.
yeah, you just saw a leap from the small screen to the big screen. So a lot of that stuff was already in place by the time of the motion picture. So yeah.
430 crew complement on the refit.
So that's the refit Constitution class, not the Galaxy. Well, Galaxy class has probably got 1,000 people. Right.
Well, actually, Galaxy class doesn't have. It's still 3 digits, but that's another conversation. The original series Constitution class 203 for the crew, the nominal crew complement, and then the refit class is 430.
Really?
Yeah. Memory Alpha.
I'm on a different website that totally says something different. I'll go with Memory Alpha.
Yeah, I'll go with Memory Alpha. Because that's where you're going to get. That's where the nerd mob will come down on you if you're wrong.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the info on a different Enterprise. It was probably like the old one, like the NX or something. Yeah, you're right. The original series is definitely, at least the movie one is definitely bigger.
Yeah, crew complement is 1,000 to 6,000 on the Galaxy class, but now we're switching properties and franchises. Well, same franchise, but different
timeline.
Yeah.
So how about this? During the there's that infamous cave scene, the Pon farr between Savick and adolescent Spock or whatever. This is more a subjective kind of aesthetic question, but do you guys think that like it was a good like iconic, maybe like memorable kind of thing to do to like to emphasize or symbolize like the that part of the Vulcan like reproductive cycle or whatever, to have them rub each other's fingers, or is it just kind of cringy?
I'll let my little brother go first.
The execution of that, they could have demonstrated.
You want Uncle to talk about this?
Oh, yeah, did you watch the extra features that we talked about?
Not yet. I'm sorry, I didn't have time.
It's worth the 5 minutes. I'm not even kidding.
Okay. It's only 5 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so about that. Okay, I think if you don't know anything about, especially if you haven't watched the episode about Spock in the original series, about where he had to deal with Pon farr, this might come out of nowhere. Like what? And I think for the fact that they probably filmed that scene knowing that maybe not everybody gets it or has seen it, I think they did. I think they did a good job. Actually, I think they handled it with grace, because it is a part of. Like, I think if you were to leave that scene out, it might have been okay or fine, but I think the fact that maybe a fan might watch and go, hey, wait a minute, if he was going through age, like 1 through 8 to his current age, what about Pon farr? Wouldn't he have died?
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
That, you'll die, right? So
yeah.
it'll seem like a plot hole if you didn't address it. So the fact that they addressed that scene of how he gets through Pon farr during his like accelerated aging is, I think it's important. I think it might be cringy if you just don't get it, if you're just like coming in on the same time, like what is going on here?
Right.
But we handled it well, because it's not like I'm not quite sure what the hand thing is. I bet you Memory Alpha talks about it, but I'll tell you what I thought it was when I first saw it. I just thought it's like, because you realize that I've watched Spock do stuff throughout the series. He can Vulcan neck pinch you, where he just puts his fingers on your shoulder, hits a nerve, and then you just pass out. So I just assume like Vulcans are really good at knowing, your chakra points or your nerve points, or your, if you're into kung fu, like your chi. So I think it's just she's doing that finger thing up and down his hand to calm his nerves down and to get him to kind of like release that Pon farr energy, without actually having to have sex with him. So, and I think that's the most platonic way that she can help him out in that situation. And I could be wrong. Someone could point out to me that later on it's like, oh, no. What that hand thing is totally different. And then I'll be like corrected. But my initial, when I was watching it for the first time, that's what I thought. Like, hey, look, let me, let me do this thing to your hand to, to release, to at least, regulate your body system and your nerves and all the stuff that you're going through right now.
Do you think the depiction of Ponfar in this movie is a natural progression of the depiction of Ponfar in the original series episode?
I'm trying to think. In the movie, he's pretty much in a lot of pain, right? Like he's got to really fight it.
Right.
I mean, I think one of the things is Ponfar. If left alone, it does become right. It's been a while since I've seen the original episode, but it can be pretty bad. Like they can get really berserker mode if the guy doesn't, he doesn't make it.
So it's season 2, episode 1, Amok Time. Dad?
Yeah, and that was one of the recommendations I had. Amok Time is on my 5 that you should watch. Just like we watched.
Yeah, it's where Kirk has to wrestle the guy.
Yeah. We watched Space Seed and then we watched Wrath of Khan, but we didn't have time to do Amok Time and then do Search for Spock, which is what we should have done. And
but it's just a little context, though.
It's a lot of context, but here's the thing. I thought I was alone, but my younger brother he looked at it the same way I did in 1984. I did not think it was full on getting it on with Savick, but and I thought I'm not going to even I don't have to reiterate what he said, but come to find out when you read. The novelization, you read the director's notes, you listen to interviews. Believe it or not, they full on had sex.
Did they really?
Yes, they did. And that was, that was a shocker to me at my age right now in 2020 when I discovered, listening to the director's comments, listening to the actor's comments, and all this other stuff. That was the script because that's the way you release the energy from Ponfar. You have to full on just do it.
So you can't be satisfied with just a platonic demonstration of.
I need.
Or is that one interpretation of it? Maybe
I'm
because
sure
that stuff wasn't even in the final cut, so
exactly
it could not be.
And I'm
possibly
sure
be non-canonical.
It's canonical if the actors say that that's what happened.
So someone needs to verify.
And it's canonical if the director and the writer say that was supposed to happen.
Yeah, okay. Canonical now. Yeah.
So to me, it's canonical that that Lieutenant Savick went full Mary Kay Letourneau on a 17-year-old Vulcan. But we can't look at it like that. She's late 30s, in human age or whatever, early 40s, and he's 17 years old. When you look at Search for Spock in that context, you're like, wow, that's a whole different layer that I didn't even know about. But then you look at it from a biological or a zoological point of view, physical need point of view, she had to do that. But it kind of makes me look at the whole thing. The whole finger sex thing is the only thing that we saw, and what followed was full on whatever Vulcans do, to satisfy Ponfar, which was done off screen, and that's verified by the actors and the creative team, the directors and the script writers and everything else. Okay. But your uncle and I. We didn't even get that. We didn't get that. We didn't get that till 2020.
They said they were going to have a pregnant Savick in the next movie, didn't they?
That was the joke between the writers. And
okay. Yeah. Huh.
So that's kind of why I wanted you to watch the special features. The little part there because it was hilarious.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Uncle, before we move on to the next question?
I think I just me and your dad just kind of like our. Yeah. I mean, I like our version of it where it's just like, hey, look, I just do this show of affection and nerve thing with your hands just to calm you down and get you through it, and it'll help you pass through the situation.
The more instant
like, let's look at it from the other way. Like, I mean. Maybe someone listening think, well, are we being prudes? I mean, like...
for 37 years, I just thought, she's just giving him a therapeutic massage. That's all, for 37 years, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was more of like a Vulcan nerve thing, where like, hey, if I do this across your hand, hitting these nerves, it'll definitely that it's like a very like low-level amount of intimacy it's not the full thing, but it's enough, as well as the motion and what nerves I'm hitting on your hand to like release it, or at least keep it from being deadly. But then, that's, my mind, who wasn't a full-on, I didn't read into it too much. I was just taking it as I went for the first 1 or 2 times I watched it, and that's kind of how I said it. Because they cut away, and there's no, like, cutting back, and then she's, like, putting her shirt back on or anything. So, like, to me, that's all they did, and that was enough. But the thing about Star Trek is, culturally speaking, like, they meet different alien races that have different cultural things that are shocking to humans. Like humans don't think that that's we might go, well, we don't like that custom when we think it's actually offensive to us. In Next Generation, I think they meet us a culture where at a certain age, the elderly are put to death, and it's shocking to Deanna Troy's mother. But like in this one, like a matron, like an older a woman that helps, this in this particular circumstance. Maybe they wouldn't do it normally, but in this time of need, in the dire circumstances, which is they're trapped on Genesis. It's in a survival thing. He doesn't have, he's going through something. He doesn't have access to what he would normally have access to back on his home world.
Right.
And it's just sex. It's like, what's the big deal? You know what I mean? So if we go with the original idea that Saavik does help him through it by having sex with him, I mean, to her, that might not be a big deal. It's just as bad as isn't charged with any more, like, it doesn't have any, like, the baggage, anything more than, like, giving someone, like, oh, let me help you get your leg cramped.
Yeah.
You go through your leg cramp.
But something?
Well, the Vulcans are very logical creatures, so that would make sense anyway. It's logical that if he's going to die, she needs to do what she needs to do in order to make that not happen.
Yeah, and little brother, the clues are in front of us the whole time. If we remember, our dialogue from Amok Time, Bones actually, I think is, some other Trekkie's going to jump out at me for misquoting this or, doing the Mandela effect on remembering it wrong. But basically, someone says, during expositionary dialogue in Amok Time that if you don't carry out Ponfar, it could be fatal if the ritual is not carried out. So, having known that in 1984, but we weren't thinking about it, we were just so excited just to be in the movie theater and watching it.
Right. Well, also, I think. Well, I mean. Okay, so this is horrible. I'm sure it's cringy for Star Trek fans to listen to us attempt to remember what happened in Unlock Time because we haven't seen it lately, and they're like, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
But my memory was like,
there's some dude on a couch right now yelling at the speaker, going, he just watched it like 10 minutes ago. Going,
and maybe that's the entertaining part, the fact that we're clumsily walking through it. But I think at the end of Unlock Time, he doesn't need to make, because his chosen fiancée actually is in love with someone else.
Yeah, because he's not emphatic. He's not empathetically. He's not emotionally bonded to her anymore, so he can alleviate the Ponfar that way.
Right. So he never actually had to. He never actually had to have sexual intercourse, and he would walk away from the event fine without it. So you don't. I mean, I think even in that episode, they established you don't need to, right? You can just release the energy another way.
We're gonna have to do a rewatch. It's easier for me to believe that soulless, Spock shell, meatbag Spock, Genesis Spock, because he was just an empty vessel at that point. He's just feeling the physiological need. He has no emotional need, at that point, because he doesn't have a mind,
Yeah. Spock, just go hit the heavy bag for like an hour, man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I didn't know we were watching Space Porkies, at that time. I mean, it's a whole new context for me.
Yeah. Anyway, we're probably taking too long in the subject. Nephew, if you want to continue on to your next point.
Sure. So the character of David, he dies in this. He was introduced in the previous film, and now he's killed in this one. Did you guys think that his death was necessary at all? Like, because the way I see it, it's like, why even introduce him if you're just going to kill him off 2 seconds later anyway? They didn't even build up on the relationship between him and Kirk. You get a little hint of it at the end of the second one, but you expect, if they're going to not necessarily build upon, but if the chronology is gonna directly overlap from film 2 to film 3, you would expect there to be an expansion on that element as well. But you don't even get a conversation in this one. He straight up dies. So it's like, what was the point of killing him? Was that necessary, or was that unnecessary? Was it just cheap way for the writers to advance the narrative, or how do you guys feel about that decision?
Well, I think we just answered that in what we were talking about previously. Because one, I'm just going to answer that question. Then I want to give you my personal opinion. One, they had to have David die because otherwise Spock would die from the Ponfar if Saavik wasn't there to release him from the Ponfar fever. And he would he would go into that toxicity.
But they didn't need to write it that way, though.
They didn't need to write it that way.
This is all written. It doesn't have to be written
Right.
the way it was written exactly. There's no dictate.
And I think that was the franchise's Darth Maul. It's like
just a waste potential.
Just a waste of a character. I mean, I felt that was a WTF moment as a fan. Going, okay, you gave us David for
Kirk's son.
Yeah, Kirk's son for
the half
of two movies. And you just threw it away. I mean, that was just, I was not happy with that. I think I'm going to change my rating to 7 out of 10.
Just for that?
Yeah.
Just for killing the son of Kirk?
Oh, yeah. It pisses me off right now. I'm done.
Well, if my big brother's going to do that, I got to follow him, right? No. Okay, 7.8. No, actually, I'll keep mine at 8. I'll keep mine at like a B minus.
Okay.
Yeah. Continue, Joe.
No, that's it. That's all I have to say. That's it in a nutshell. In the interest of brevity, I mean, everything else is just going to be me ranting.
Mm-hmm. My opinion on it was, I think if you were watching it in order, it would definitely. That's a natural reaction, and I wouldn't blame anyone from having that reaction. But I think if you go all the way through to the end to number 6. It totally comes together well. And I won't say any more than that.
Oh.
Spoiler. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But in the context of just Star Trek 3, it's tough because, I wouldn't really say he got killed 2 seconds later because, obviously you meet him and you definitely know what kind of relationship he has. He doesn't even know that he had a son. In number 2.
Oh,
and number 2 is about. And number 2 is definitely about feeling old. And Jenna says at the end of it where he talks about feeling young again. Number 2, he's an admiral. He's not going to be in the seat anymore. He's definitely entering a new part of his life, and that part of it, the part of his youth where he was out, adventuring in the galaxy, that was over, and then. He meets a son he didn't know he had. I mean, it concludes a lot of points at the end of number 2. Would you like to see more of him? Sure. And you do start to see him in number 3, but unfortunately, when you see him in number 3, he doesn't get to have time with David. But I do think it does feel like a waste of a character. Like if you were going to want. Why was that necessary? You know what I mean? I think maybe what the writers had in mind was the sacrifices. When characters go through, they have to sacrifice a lot to get what they want, and what he wanted was to get his friend back. And even Sarek at the end of this is at what cost? Yep. Your job, your ship. Your son, and he responds with him and he says, well, if I didn't, it would have been my soul. And of course Kirk would maybe done things differently if he knew for sure it would cost him that much, but before he embarked on the quest, he didn't know it would cost him that much, but he knew he had to try. And that's the thing about Kirk is, most of the time, especially in the original series, when he's fly by the seat of your pants, Kirk, big, defy all odds, big, decision making. He normally comes out on top, but this is one of the times he doesn't. You know what I mean? A lot happens. It's a Pyrrhic victory. A lot is sacrificed for him to get it done, to get his friend back.
I get that.
So I think that's part of why David dies. You know what I mean? It's also, you have to think of the scene where, even though it is a waste, but think of the scene where he's listening on the radio where the commander of the Klingons, was it Kruge? I can't pronounce his name right. He says like, I'm gonna, just pick one, just kill one, doesn't matter which one. And of course you're like, oh my God, who is he gonna kill? I mean, Saavik, my best friend Spock, my son, none of those are good choices. You know what I mean? And then after you hear a little bit something, and then Saavik reports like it was David that died this time. You know what I mean? It's like, that's a really weird emotional moment for you to wait to see which one is going to be randomly killed, and you don't know which one of your friends or family are about to be killed. So it's not great, but it's compared to some of the wasteful deaths I've seen in maybe other properties and movies. It's definitely not the most horrendous either.
Huh.
I get what you're saying, and from a creative point of view, that is a beautiful mechanism that they use to tell a story. I mean, that it gave you real loss, it gave you real consequences. But as a fan, was that a factor of writers not being fans and not understanding the franchise and not understanding the fan base and what an atrocity they committed by doing that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, and that's why I get it. That's why I don't blame anyone for having that reaction. But let's pretend we're the writers, right? And we've written ourselves into that scenario. And I think maybe, if as a Star Trek fan, you would look at it as like, oh, one of them's going to die. Well, it's definitely going to be Saavik because she's not a main character. She was only introduced in the last movie. So I bet you Saavik's going to die. There's no way they're going to kill his son. And they're definitely not going to kill Spock because it's about to search for Spock and they're about to get him back. So I bet you it's going to be Saavik. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was David. I totally didn't see that coming.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Mission accomplished.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, hit the ball out of the park on that one. Home run. But you pissed off the fans.
But that's why it's hard to be a writer, right? Like, because you don't want to do something that's predictable, but sometimes when you don't do something unpredictable, you might rub someone else the wrong way, and that's the balance you strike. You have to be careful. Maybe that's the other level of being a skillful writer, not being able to write yourself in a corner where you have to make that big of that kind of decision that can swing the consequences with the audience can swing so heavily one way or the other.
Yeah. I was going to move it back up to an 8 out of 10, but then I remembered you brought up Commander Kruge, and so I'm going to keep it at a 7.8 because I cannot do Klingon Doc Brown. I mean, it took me out of the moment every time Christopher Lloyd was on the screen. Give me Genesis, Kirk! Okie dokie! I mean, it's just...
I think, you know what? I don't mind it. I think at first, I was definitely for a long period of time, I was with everyone else where it's just really weird that the guy from Taxi is the crazy kooky guy from Taxi.
Yeah, and your nephew doesn't understand that, every time I saw him on screen, I almost expect him to go, okie dokie,
Right.
Yeah.
I get that. But you know what? A part of me is also celebrating. Like, a part of me wants to support him because I know how hard it is for actors to be typecasted and just playing the same note character all the time. And you know what? I think it's kind of cool. It gave just a different flavor. So lately I've embraced it. I've embraced the fact that I think he's cool. I like it. Yeah. I like the fact that he's different. You're right, it is goofy, but whatever. I like the fact that he played a character out of his wheelhouse a little bit. Yep. Definitely a villain. I mean, he is a villain, though. He's nasty.
And he was good at it. I have, on the rewatch, I did change my pick. What did I say last night, son?
I don't know. Oh, you said it wasn't you over-cringed it in your memories.
Yes.
Yeah, you had like a Mandela effect where you thought it was like 3 times as bad as it was.
But he's doing it pretty good. Like he is playing.
Yeah, 37 years removed. I'm like, oh yeah, if I didn't know that he was Jim from Taxi and he was Doc Brown in Back to the Future, it would have been perfectly a good
and that's why I'm not going to hold it. That's why I like him.
I put that on the production team. I put that on the casting people.
Well, yeah, that was another thing too. Is the distance from when you watched it the first time compared to the distance you watched it the second time. You have that space between. Okay, so a couple more questions, then we'll end this episode.
Sure.
Okay. So going back on continuing on the thread of David, how come, if the Genesis planet has all these weird revival, rehabilitative or whatever, rejuvenating effects and stuff, why didn't it bring back David after he got killed? If it could bring back Spock and everything.
That's one of those good points where like it should have, but also it's kind of one of those things where sometimes you encounter a thing where like it's either the fan fills in the blanks themselves, or someone goes, oh, that's a plot hole, or that's an inconsistency.
Seems like they messed up their own internal logic with that.
So in my internal logic, I think the reason why it didn't revive him, it was because the Genesis wave only happened at the very beginning, right around the detonation and the forming of the planet. After the planet and the planets formed, the wave, like the energy of the Genesis wave was over. It wasn't doing that anymore. But Spock's torpedo soft landed right at the very beginning. Remember when it was still red? It hadn't formed plants yet. It hadn't formed anything yet. It was still just at the beginning of forming that stuff. So Spock's tube did get hit with the Genesis wave, but by the time David and everyone else went back onto the planet, definitely like, I don't think the Genesis wave was there anymore, because I mean, it wasn't doing anything to Savik's body too, because like, it's not like they were evolving either. Like Savik and David or any of the Klingons while alive, they weren't evolving to the next form of human, like that would be 1,000 years from now either, or they weren't aging, or they weren't getting younger, or you know what I mean? So I think the wave was over by then. So the only things that got hit and maybe like mutated was, or revived from death was, Spock's body, the little bacteria on the surface of, his clothes and the torpedo, and that's it. You know what I mean? So I think that in my head, that's how that's why.
But so if that's the case, then why couldn't the writers take the 2 seconds it would take to just, have a quick line of exposition? Like David looks at his, data pad or something and goes, there was this energy thing that happened, but, the levels are going down now or something. They 2 seconds, it could have explained that away, and then, it wouldn't have been an issue.
Yeah, but and sometimes that's the thing about it. Like in their head, they got like, oh yeah, when the torpedo hits, and at the initial point of creation, that's where it happens. It doesn't happen after that. I'm pretty sure that's communicated in the last movie. But sometimes you do need clarification, and that's when they put it in. And sometimes they don't, because they think, I think the audience will get it. But you're right, it's a tough call. It wouldn't hurt. I agree. Like if it's one line, that would help. Sure, but it's really hard to predict what the audience will get and won't get. And as it is, especially nowadays, with a lot of people, critiquing movies, one of the things people love to incite is how bad exposition dialogue is. And the more you put in, the more they make fun of you for doing it. And I'm like, well, there's got to be at least a little bit.
This is the table. It holds things.
Movies. You just have to deal with it, and or else you're going to be lost. So
right.
I think most of the time in science fiction movies they try to keep it to a minimum as possible, and
Okay, but you think that they sufficiently explained that whole phenomenon in Wrath of Khan with the Genesis and the energy and everything?
I think close. I mean, for me, close enough. But I mean, yeah, maybe not. Maybe they could have. Maybe you're right. Maybe they could have used with a little bit. I'll give you that. But I mean, you have X amount of minutes to tell your story, and you got to triage your decision making about how much you can squeeze in.
Time and pacing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they probably could have, but I mean, I don't know. Star Trek gets really made fun of for a lot of techno babble, so yeah. So I can see them maybe not wanting to, just go, well, close enough. We'll get it.
No. Your explanation completely covers my arc on the whole thing too. I looked over at my son and
because you said it.
I looked over. I myself,
that's why I wrote it down.
Techno nerd myself looked over at your nephew and I said, "How come the Genesis wave didn't regenerate David, or the the proto matter is still there?" And he looked over at me and he said, basically it was there from the beginning. Blah blah. He went through exactly everything you said, and now I see it in that lens, and I can't unsee it. So I can see where the writers would be like, oh, it's obvious. The Genesis planet is in the fall to winter of its life. It's dying, so it's not generating any new life. The thing detonated and did its thing, and it's gone. Now I completely understand it. But for 37 years, I'm just like thinking, how come it doesn't bring David back to life? But then I was thinking about that from the fantastical, where things always get brought back to life. Hey, Darth Maul's in Clone Wars, and nobody really ever dies. So that's what I was thinking. Why couldn't they write him back in? But when you look at it that way, yeah, I absolutely agree. Now I can't see it any other way.
Yeah, that explanation works for me as well. So.
No, okay, cool.
I think it was just an issue of the writers not being able to communicate with the audience as transparently as they might have, and maybe they did it in some other cut or something. There are a lot of factors at play here. Who knows? Because they cut a lot of stuff out for time and pacing. The studio. And
exactly.
So.
Yeah.
But so this is the big question now, the one I've been waiting for the whole episode. What did you guys? And we'll start with you, Uncle. What did you guys think of when the Enterprise blew up? When it just explodes into a million pieces.
Yeah.
The ship that's been there since the start. Really, the everything that is Star Trek. How'd you feel when that just blows up?
So here's one of the things about what kind of significant things does Star Trek 3 bring to us? And as a fan of ships, it does bring us new ships. Like the Oberth, the Klingon Bird of Prey, the Excelsior. It does do those things, and that's awesome. But one of the other things it does bring us was the epic destruction of the Enterprise. And the great thing I thought about that was not only does it get destroyed, the people that either storyboarded it or figured out how it was, the manner in which it was destroyed, I thought was beautiful, because it's very dramatic. It's very heart-wrenching, especially if you're a fan of ships. Because anything about, especially if you connect Star Trek with naval voyages, whether it's, old ones like, Master and Commander and old sailing ships. And there's a relationship the crew has with their ship. You know what I mean? It's like families. It's a part of them. So, yeah, it's very touching to have to see your own ship go down like that. And at the time, I feel like in science fiction movies, when things blow up, it's like the Death Star. It just blows up once. You just see boom, and the pieces of sparks and debris come at the camera, and then the music plays dramatically. But in this one, it's different. Like the bridge blows up first, and then different parts. The front of the saucer section starts to cave in, and then there's secondary explosions, and then it starts to head toward the atmosphere and burn up in the atmosphere. It has different stages of blowing up, so it's a very creative, visually creative way of showing that. So props to the effects department and storyboard artists, whoever is working on that, and the director for putting that all together. That is amazing. It's so amazing, and I think it was I thought it was impactful, but it must have been so more impactful than I thought it was, because technically people that have been handed the franchise later on in years have been trying to duplicate it by blowing up their version of the Enterprise too.
Yep, exactly.
They do it in new
Generations.
They do it in the Abrams universe as well, and it never has the same impact as the first time it was done in number 3. It was, and that's why I would encourage anyone going forward who does more further Enterprise, no matter what era, no matter what cruise, don't use this as a crutch to go to this and go, oh, let me do something shocking, let me blow up the Enterprise. No, you're done. Perfect 3 did it best. You don't have to do that again.
Yeah. Don't fix when it broke and all that.
Yeah, don't jump. You can only jump the shark once.
Yeah.
And what do you think, Dad? Do you agree with everything you said, or?
Oh, absolutely. The Enterprise is as much a character as Spock, Scotty, McCoy, Uhura, Kirk. She is a character, and to see her die was almost taking away from David's death.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it's seriously, because this is the ship that we've seen. Christopher Pike, Kirk. Do the 5-year mission. This is the ship that we've saw her make over, in the motion picture, and you're getting comfortable with her, and you're in love with her, still, and new too, with the motion picture debut. and now it's taken away.
It was always on the line too. They were trying to take it away, and then they were trying to decommission it.
And now it's final, and you're living. You walk out of that movie. That's the cliffhanger. What are they going to do? Are they going to have a Star Trek 4? What kind of ship is the Enterprise going to look like now again too? So maybe that was there's one cliffhanger.
Okay.
But it was a WTF moment for me. I was more numb than I think when David died. Hey, did we see that one together, little brother? Did we?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember.
I got a feeling no. I don't think we did. That might have been like mom took me and like a friend to go see it because you had already seen it with your high school buddies or something.
Yeah, I would have been 84. I would have been 16, and you would have been 9. Yeah, so you may have gone to that with Glenn or somebody. I can't remember.
Yeah, we were. I don't remember. We'll have to backtrack that later.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But anyway, nephew, go ahead and continue if you had any more questions. I do, if you guys don't mind, I do have a couple extra thoughts on the story stuff toward the end if you want to hear.
Yeah, your podcast.
Yeah, I just I'll give space at the end for everyone to just add anything that they might not have had a chance to say earlier. Just to keep it a little more organized. But that's good. That's good. We need stuff like that. We need expansions of discussion and all that. But I just want to know for you two. Why is there just some random Asian guy hitting the gong on the Vulcan planet in the last few scenes? There's just some guys like dong. He's just there. Like what is that?
That you know what that is? That is early proto-diversity.
Is it?
Yes.
But it's such a stereotype. Just some dude. It's like some dude in some Chinese garb. He just hits the dragon arise. Dong. It's so out of place with everything else. It's like
I don't agree.
Why don't you agree though? Why don't you agree?
Because more than any other culture at the time, more than any other culture in the Star Trek universe at the time, the Vulcans were the most associated with Asian ethnicity.
What are some examples of that?
Science, math, stoicism, everything. The mysticism of ancient cultures and stuff like that. So to have one of the predominant non-dialogue speaking characters. Banging the gong, if you want to call it that.
It's a gong. What else is it? What else is it?
I thought it fit.
Yeah, because like the way like Zen works and like the whole battle like the Vulcans have with like emotions and logic, that's very much like very like early Asian people that were trying to come up with like Zen philosophy or maybe the opposite of like different Taoist or Buddhist or something. Like there's some overlap of like maybe the way they pursued their own cultural like how to proceed with their emotions. So yeah, I see there's some overlap there.
And before anyone gets outraged, everybody on this podcast is Asian, by the way.
Yeah. So what you're saying is just because the Vulcans are good at math, they have to be Asian. Is that what you're saying? They have to be Asian-based.
I didn't say that.
Asiatic
I'm
or
just saying
something.
that's inferred.
See,
well, I mean, when the Star Trek writers create alien races, they'll like to mix in various things from different cultures and different historical timelines, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And they might combine two different things from two different cultures to create a unique new blending with a slight twist because it's now on alien culture. And yeah, I think there's some overlap. There's some overlap with some other stuff too that I'm probably missing off the top of my head. Yeah. But yeah, so as well as being like very logical in science, there always seems to be the Vulcans always seems to have very firm tied roots into their past, their traditions, even though they have nothing to do with science. Wearing ceremonial garb and going through a particular ritual, the gong, having a head priestess. It's really weird for a society that's very science heavy. They still have a lot of spiritual ties to their past.
Yeah,
and they balance it well. So when I see that ceremony, it doesn't surprise me because it's. I thought it was always there, and the gong is part of that. This is part of that. So it didn't take me out of the picture as it. I think it might have with you.
Yeah, I thought it was funny, but so maybe the Vulcans are their real life analog would be the Asian, some sort of Asian people, maybe the Chinese, because it's true they have that mixture of an appreciation for the past culturally, but then also an emphasis on science and mathematics, and so I can see that definitely. And it's like kind of how Khan's not necessarily an alien, but he's an amplified human being. He's based off the Sikh kind of so it all kind of ties together. There is a real life basis for a lot of this fictional world building and everything. So
maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just our ethnic bias or something. But when the Vulcan High Priestess talks, when you see anything from a mock time to Search for Spock involving any Vulcan ritual. It's got a very, very Asian tint to me.
Tint.
Yeah. I mean,
influence.
Influence, exactly. The minute Talar starts speaking about, the ceremony, and it's been, done, it hasn't been done since ancient times and everything. It's like, to me, that seemed very Far Eastern, very, very Asian, I can't be the only one that felt that way.
But at the same time, it's also its own thing. So it works on a number of levels.
Right. And it just has a little overlap. I mean, it has overlap with some other things too. But like I said, that's when you're writing science fiction. You'll hodgepodge different cultural things together, and you'll be inspired from different sources. So,
but the one thing that's for sure is that Asian mom shame has nothing against Vulcan mom shame.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Well, thankfully, Spock had a human mom. So.
Okay, so now that we're approaching the end of our podcast episode, I'd like to give this time to allow anyone on the panel
it's all little brother. He's good at this stuff. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy it.
Uncle,
I want to run this past you guys too. I tried to think of something else to talk about that you might like. Hey, you might think it's interesting. First off, I know my nephew's fond of storytelling and things like that. And one of the things that I thought was interesting was the ceremony Faltor Pot, because the whole setup is Spock's dad visits Kirk in San Francisco and says, "Hey, look," because he's thinking that Kirk must have the Katra in his brain, right? I bet you Kirk has Spock's mind in his brain because they're the last to be seen together. And it's like, no. And it's like, but of course you should have known this. And then they figure out, okay, McCoy had it. But the thing is, but then later on at the very end, when he brings it to the head priestess and he's talking about the ritual that he wants to do, and she says, what you've asked me for hasn't been done in ages,
right?
And only in legend. And I'm like, well, for something that's so rare and so far back, it's kind of weird that he would expect it, like, oh yeah, of course we're going to do this, right? Like, Spock did do this, right? Like, this is something Spock did, right? He left you notes on how to do this. You know what I mean? And it's kind of, so to me, that's like a little, it's not a plot hole. It's just, it's one of those things that made me smile, like made me go, huh. Right. It's like,
huh.
So like, it's for, yeah, so yeah, like, it's really interesting that it was, one, it was interesting that, like, Spock at the end of number 2 didn't say, "You have always been my best friend. Oh, by the way, McCoy's got my brain. Make sure that you take me back to Vulcan." Like, he had enough energy to do that, right? But of course, they didn't write that at the time. They wrote it after they wrote that.
Yeah, because they didn't know that they were going to go with Star Trek 3 like
that.
Yeah,
right, exactly. So right now, I'm just making fun of it.
Sure, I get it.
For fun. It's not a plot hole. I'm just making fun of it.
It didn't bother me. I have to be honest.
It didn't bother me either.
Yeah.
I'm just making fun of it.
Yeah. No, totally. But to address what you said when Sarek, basically said, "Hey, we're going to do the Faltor Pan," and she goes with the whole, what U.S. has not been done since ages past, and then only in legend. I had no problem with that. I was like, "Oh, we're going to see some. We're going to see some stuff here. We're going to see some stuff here." And it's because, what you don't realize, or what a lot of people didn't think about, is like, Sarek did not know that Spock was alive until he showed up on, or unless there was a communication, subspace communication from the bird of prey to Vulcan when they're en route. They would only, let's just say he gets off the ship and they're like, "Oh, hey, my son still breathes. Okay, we're going to have to change what's going on here.
Yeah,
I heard a fairy tale. Not a fairy tale, but I heard of legend of Fall Torpan, where we can go ahead and do this. I'm going to ask the high priestess to see if she can do it. Done. To me that was it seemed organic enough to me that it didn't bother me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. So one more thing I wanted to bring up, which has always kind of been sitting on the back of my brain, is the similarity. And this happens sometimes. It's coincidental. It's two writers that never talk to each other, never seen each other's work, or sometimes it's kind of like you see it and you're inspired by it, and you maybe grab a little bit of it and you remix it and you put it in your own story. And I'm not accusing anyone of plagiarism, but I find it interesting that season 2 of Space Cruiser Yamato, or Star Blazers in the United States, has a very similar story element to Star Trek 3. And if you're wondering what that is, and tell me if it sounds familiar, the Yamato, or in the United States it's called the Argo ship, comes back home after this huge perilous battle and mission from season 1, comes back home, and it's battered, and it's been through a long journey, and they come to meet a whole new Federation, which has this new up-and-coming badass, state-of-the-art, heavily computerized ship called the Andromeda.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, so the Andromeda is there, and then on top of that, they have a mission that they got to do, and they're asking Earth, like, "Hey, we need to go do this one thing." In Star Trek, it's like, "Hey, I need to go get Spock, go do this thing for Spock."
Right.
And Yamato, it's like, "Hey, we found this one special signal, it's call for help, and we think it has to do with the latest blackouts from the Common Empire. We need to go investigate," but they won't let them. So they hijack their ship, and then they leave, and then the Andromeda goes after them. So I'm just saying.
You know what? 40 years, I never even saw that, and you and I watched those together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. I didn't think about that. I'm gonna have to give Spaceship Yamato or Star Blazers a rewatch now. Yeah, that is spot on. Yeah, but then
it's not point for point because I don't know if Sandor, which would be Scotty in this version, is working on the Andromeda, or if he gets assigned to the Andromeda. So I think they did mix it up. Like Scotty is working on the engines, and he's deliberately sabotaged the Excelsior's engine. But like Sandor, which is the engineer on the Argo or the Yamato, I don't think he doesn't sabotage.
I don't remember.
He doesn't sabotage the Andromeda, and the Andromeda's captain doesn't also he's not also an asshole where he's like, "Oh, you never can sit in the chair again, Kirk." He actually wishes, after the showdown they have, he actually lets the Yamato go and wishes Derek Wallstar luck. He's like, "Oh yeah, I hope you do well," but so it's not like point for point, but it definitely has a lot of similar beats, story beats. Yeah. So.
Oh, that is funny. What is that actor's name? Seeking or whatever from. Oh God, yeah. That was a perfect portrayal of an arrogant ass captain. I love that, and his little digital writing prop. Oh, did we lose you?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? But then some story elements are just iconic, or just what's the word I'm looking for?
Essential, fundamental.
Fundamental, yeah.
Or they're used tropes. Hey. A group of people banding together to save a village,
Yeah, bad guy, villagers, pitchforks, some monsters, stuff like that. But yeah, that is really, really close. It is so close because you have old technology with new technologies. The Andromeda is basically Scotty's grandmother with wheels, and she's a wheelchair.
Right. It's the new hotness, and the other ones about to get mothballed. Yeah, so it's got that same kind of vibe. But and if anyone was wondering, in Japan, that season 2 came out in 78, 79.
I was just going to say, one came before, Yamato came before Star Trek.
It was 78, 79, and then Search for Spock was 84. So
that's funny. I never, in my numerous nights, just my brain wandering, I've never come across that similarity before until now.
Yeah, huh? It's interesting.
Yeah, pretty funny.
But that's the only part. Just that part of Act 1. The rest of Star Trek 3 is totally
good one.
Nothing to say.
Yeah, and I think the reason, maybe part of the reason they kept this open enough to where you could speculate about it, but I think maybe part of the reason why Spock's dad is like so, he's like, why didn't you know about this? Like, how could you not have? Wouldn't he have told you stuff? Maybe that was just a way for him to grieve, maybe after he kind of talked about it and found it out.
Sure.
Maybe it's just him in the process, in the throes of grief. He's just kind of it's an instant knee jerk kind of reaction to blame Kirk, who was the captain responsible, best friend and everything. Like that's a natural response, even for someone like a Vulcan who's more logical. They would give in to something like that, probably. It's just a universal
the reason
thing.
why he was so emphatic that Kirk should have known is because he assumed Kirk mind melded with Spock. So it's like, well, you're the one that mind melded with Spock, so you would have known.
Right.
He's like, no, I did it. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
you did it? Yeah, we were separated, and that's why the conversation started like that. But once they reviewed the tapes, they realized, oh, he actually mind melded with McCoy first. By the way, back then. It is until maybe later on in cinema that people stop using the same camera angle in the security tapes as the one that the movie makes.
Oh, that always bothers me. Always bothers me.
But I mean, back in the '80s, you let it go. But if anyone does that now in modern cinema, it's like, come on, you guys.
But they're still and they're still doing it.
Some people are still doing it because it's lazy. Yeah.
And I understand it's budgetary costs and stuff like that, but still, come on. What I liked about that part with Sarek, Ambassador Sarek. I mean, holy cow! You never see him upset or angry or anything. And like he told the High Priestess, when it comes to matters of my son, my logic is not, 100%. He's admitting right there that he's emotional. That's a deep moment. I got a little choked up when
it is. It is because that's the part where he's like, man, a Vulcan dad is not too dissimilar from a human dad, and then it speaks on all, it speaks to all parents in that moment, regardless.
Yeah. Well, and to me, more than any Sith, more than, any other villain or any other badass or hero in any franchise, in any universe, Spock's my number one guy and Sarek is the other one. I mean, those guys are just, to me, that's my definition of a badass. And to see them get all choked up and, to see that is, those are big moments for me. So I'm still going to hold an 8. I'm not going to upgrade it.
You don't think Luke Skywalker from A New Hope is a badass?
No, because I want to go to Tashi Station with me and my friends and pick up some power converters.
Like the good old farm boy, good old moisture farmer boy. No? Okay. So last question, and we'll start with you, Uncle. But have your guys' ratings changed from the start of the conversation, or do you stand by what you set out with?
Well, obviously, I started off with like a C plus, and I think that was because maybe the production value wasn't high throughout. It's like high in some areas, low in others. I mean, especially like when they get on the Genesis planet, it definitely looks like a set, like a cheap set. The combat between like Kirk and Commander Cruz is it doesn't look great. So I kind of gave it like a C plus because of that. But you know what? On hindsight, the themes that are kind of explored, the story themes that are explored, as well as just like what it brought to the franchise. The iconic death of the Enterprise, the new ships designs. I'm going to upgrade it to a B. So yeah, it did change. It went from a 7 to an 8.
Okay. And then what about you, Padre?
I'm going to stay the same with my 8 because even through the course of this discussion and the journey of this last hour, it's dipped down to 7.3. With me getting pissed off about the death of David and Christopher Lloyd and stuff, but then it's also come back up to. So it's still going to average out to about an 8 for me.
So you've kind of had an emotional journey this episode.
I've had it. It's been a roller coaster.
Oh, there you go.
It's been a roller coaster.
And then
what's your rating?
Well, since I don't know all the movies and everything, I would say this one's a 7 for me. Or I actually like this one better than Wrath of Khan for some reason.
Oh, wow.
Even though I know Wrath of Khan's supposed to be the iconic one. I'm not trying to be a contrarian when I say this, but it just...
No, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
I really like in this one the aspect of the inverted elements, Starfleet being against them and stuff, them having to... This isn't a mission that they've been assigned or anything. They're breaking free of all that, and it's much more personal. There's no distractions. You cut everything off, no extras or anything.
Yeah. I totally see that. I can see why that's a more appealing journey to go through. So I get it. No, I think that's valid. That's interesting. Yeah.
In a way, it kind of challenges everything that Star Trek was before a little bit. It's not necessarily the focal point of the movie, but that's definitely an aspect of it. So that's
just enough for the experience to taste differently. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, son, let's ask let's do a first time for your podcast here. Let's do a Holden rating because we have enough contestants for a podium, for a bronze, silver, and a gold. Okay,
so for the first three movies.
For the first three movies, you have yet to rate in order your favorite, and then we got three. So let's hear your top three.
Okay. Well, honestly, overall, I would say overall, and this is a composite of subjective and objective. I would say, for me, it's probably, honestly probably which one? Search for Spock. Okay, Search for Spock's number one. That's the gold.
Okay, all right.
Motion picture would be silver, and then Wrath of Khan would be bronze.
You're giving Wrath of Khan a bronze.
I'm a little disappointed about it because the original episode makes him. He's a really interesting character, Khan, in the original.
Space Seed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's it called?
Space Seed.
Space Seed. Yeah, there was a lot of potential that you could go with there, and I like the younger. I don't know, maybe it's because I saw him as a younger one. He's got a lot more vitality, he's got a lot more energy. It would have been, I think, better if you're going to continue that story to do it in the original series when the guy's still young. You know what I mean? We can still do his own, stunts and everything. They can have more fights with him and, Kirk. And it's like that. That's kind of the action-y aspect of him is more important. It's really disappointing in Wrath of Khan when you don't even see them meet up physically. They're always talking to each other on comlinks and stuff.
Oh.
They never actually get together for that big focal point. And maybe that's me. Maybe that's the normie in me who
fundamental.
needs those
They do fight together, but their fight, it's naval combat. It's mind versus mind. The ship versus ship, but it's not physical.
But in the in the first one you have them fight, so it's like why not bring that full circle? And this is just a me thing, why not have it bring them full circle? They crash on a plane or something.
Now they're old.
But that's the thing though. It's like now that raises the stakes because
it would have watered it down.
Let me stretch first.
It would have watered.
You stretch my hands first. Con. Give me a second.
Yeah, you think we're calling Montalban's yoga stretching in Space Seed was cringy because I saw your face when he did that when he woke up in sick bay and he's like, you thought that was cringy. Okay, that might have to see two old dudes fight in Wrath of Khan would probably have been more cringy than watching Christopher Lloyd and
no, to me they don't necessarily.
On the other hand, let your son have it. It might have been cringy or it might have been epic as all hell.
True.
So
That's true. That's true.
There's that aspect of it too. Yeah, it could be fun for the camp, but like a Batman Forever or Batman Robin sense. Yeah,
they would have figured it out. I think either way it would have been cool. I think the naval battle that we got is very iconic of Trek. It's the thing it's the reason why fans love it so much. Is because it's the most perfect representation of Starfleet battles. For any Trek fan that likes that aspect of Trek. There's a lot of Trek fans that don't. They like the exploration and seeing strange new places part. Some fans like both, and I think I suspect me and your dad like both, where we like.
Absolutely.
But there's a part of us that do love the chess-like, slow naval sparring of a naval battle, and we get that really well done in number 2.
Well, that's the thing, actually. I would have liked to see, and maybe that is the battle of wits, but I would have liked to see a different kind of battle of wits, because I feel like the military aspect makes it less personal. There's this vendetta between the two of them. Wouldn't it have been better to... They could have both. They could have the naval battle, and then they could have a scene where maybe they crash into each other, Khan gets on the ship, and then they just have a one where they have to indirectly fight each other physically, and they have to use their wits, raise the stakes even more. You could have both. You could have a part A and part B.
Man.
You know what I mean? Maybe that's just
it's not an infinite budget.
Hey, maybe I'm spoiled, but 21st century standards. I don't know. Could be
spoilers to Next Generation. Star Trek Nemesis was that episode 10 or whatever. It does have that. But it's not done well. So.
Oh, okay.
I'll let you leave that for another time if you ever get that far.
Sure.
So Star Trek 3 is your gold. Star Trek motion picture is your bronze, and then your silver, and then bronze is your is con. Huh? Interesting.
Yeah, is that weird? Is that a weird opinion to have?
No, not at all.
No. I mean,
not weird, different.
Yeah, but what exactly about is unconventional?
Each person is, each person. I've seen talking to other Trek fans. I've heard a whole different variations of what their favorites are, and it's like that's the thing about watching these sci-fi movies or any movie, I guess. Everyone goes in there having different tastes. We can visit the same restaurant and enjoy two different dishes. So.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks and all that. But,
right.
Yeah, maybe my favorite one will be Cybok. The one with Cybok at the end. That'll be.
It just might be.
Yeah. You know what? That's not a sin. It's your opinion, and that's perfectly. And if Cybok becomes your number one, we will ridicule you, but we will still love you, and we will respect that.
Well, just
but we will ridicule you.
Yeah, but it's not a sin like saying.
It'll be out of love, though.
Yeah, out of love. But a sin would be considering Highlander 2: The Quickening a good movie.
Oh, okay.
That's completely different territory. So you're not committing that high of a sin.
Well, personally, is it a sin to say that I think that the captain from Enterprise is better than Kirk?
Scott Bakula? Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you don't like do the impression real quick.
No.
Everyone loves the Scott Bakula impression. Come on now. No, good morning. How's it going? Happy day. Yeah, do that whole thing. Come on.
My little brother knows. It's like out of all the Enterprise captains, it's like Scott Bakula is just the most. Was it
Howdy Doody or something?
Not Howdy Doody.
Leave It to Beaver.
It's like, good morning, Porthos. Oh, it's such a fine day on the bridge. Oh, look, it's an alien ship. Let's say hi. Why, they're firing on us. Why would they do that? Golly gee.
You don't like that? You don't need...
I don't.
You need a little optimism in your Star Trek.
No,
the whole point of his optimism.
His Scott Bakula's performance in Enterprise just took me out of everything because he was such just a zippity-doo-dah Pollyanna. That was the word I was looking at.
Well, I like Enterprise's theme out of all the...
It's been a while since I've seen it, so I'll have to watch it again.
But he develops, but he lost me because basically I couldn't hang with it after 3 episodes. But I would come back, walk through a room while it's on, and I'm like, oh, this looks good. This looks good. And those elements were written out of his character, or he developed beyond those. But, I couldn't be there as big of a fan as I was.
So you need him to be depressed in order to...
No, I didn't need him to be like, oh, hey, look. It's a bunch of young youths coming at me in a dark alley. Hi, guys. How are you doing? Any good places to eat around here? I mean, that's how he would go into shit.
He's supposed to be a Midwest boy. Everyone knows people from the Midwest.
It's like, hey, there's a bunch of youths in a dark alley. Maybe I should, put my shields up or something, or just like, just nod, quietly walk by, keep my guard up. But
But the people down the alley might want to give him a hug or something. You don't know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Anything can happen.
Everyone knows. Isn't he from the Midwest? Everyone knows.
Let's see how exaggerated this interpretation of yours is when I rewatch an episode.
I will find the key episode and scenes and send them to you.
But then again, you said that Christopher Lloyd Klingon was like too much for you though too.
Absolutely, and
so you could be wrong.
And with Bakula, okay, we're in the cats and dogs section of this discussion now. This is the potpourri, but in the Scott Bakula's defense, I had just seen him come out of Quantum Leap,
exactly,
where he's just
same thing.
So I'm carrying that baggage from Quantum Leap with me. And I'm not
carrying baggage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And looking back now, 30 years later now, because that would be about the time frame, 30, 20, ish, 30 years later. If I go back and look at Scott Bakula now with NCIS, New Orleans, and all his other body of work, and I look at him now as Archer, it just like Christopher Lloyd, it could be a completely different viewing for me.
Yeah.
I'm open to that. I'm open to that.
What do you think about the theme song though for
Loved it.
Enterprise? People hate it though. They're like,
it was so divisive, but hey, you want to save this material for? I loved it. It was so different, and I loved it.
Are we ever going to watch it? Like, are we going to?
Yeah, we can watch it. We can absolutely watch it.
Maybe do season by season.
I was fine with it. I was fine with it.
Tell you what, we're going to stop this podcast. We're going to go watch the first season of Enterprise. No, the first episode. Just one episode.
We got to do it in order.
Oh, jeez.
No, you don't need to.
We got to watch Star Trek 4 now. We got to be anal about it.
No, but here's the thing.
Papa.
Enterprise chronologically happens before the TOS.
Yeah, but but the thing, is like, I've seen the pilot for Enterprise. I've seen most of it already. So
Okay, all right.
And I didn't like
let
it.
him off the hook. You just do it in order.
All right. I will let him do it in order.
It's part of
If
the
you get into Trek, if you really get into Trek that deep and you want to go through it all, then yeah, you're going to eventually want to watch it. But
I say we do Enterprise after we do all the main 6 movies. How about that? After we do the main 6 Kirk era movies, we can do Enterprise because that's the one I'm most interested in out of all of them.
All right.
So that's my personal.
What are we watching? What are we watching after we finish this?
Star Trek 4, right?
You gonna watch Star Trek 4, or you want to do a mock time?
We can do both, right?
Sure, if you want.
One after the other.
I'm awake.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add, Uncle, before you go? Any?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And you're welcome, little brother, to join us for the discussion on Star Trek 4 if you want.
Yeah, always welcome.
All right. Well, yeah, we can talk about if that lines up schedule-wise, and then we'll go from there.
Sure.
But yeah, it was a joy to be able to spend time with you guys, talk about Star Trek, and so thanks for the invite.
Well, no, good. Basically, it's a good family get-together in this time of COVID, too.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's probably the most productive podcast episode we've had so far. So thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 15 of the Imperial Tides podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, do remember to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, tell all your friends. We'll have a big bonfire in my backyard someday, in your 2050 reunion for Imperial Tides. You were all here first, so, remember. I don't know. I'll remember you when we hit 1 billion subscribers. So, yeah. Anyway, stay tuned for more. We upload new videos every week, and look forward to more Shakespeare with me and Filipino Kid, and then more Star Trek with me and Padre over here, and perhaps Uncle. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned, and peace.
Good night.
Live long and prosper.
Good night.